How many unpublished and half-finished books do you have? Well, if by unpublished you mean I never sent to a publisher, everything I've ever written is unpublished. If by unpublished you mean not released to the public, then most of the Kooky universe, I think, still hasn't been released to the public at the time of recording. I'm still trying to go through all that, change a few things, like taking my names off stuff. There's a lot of cringy stuff in Conquest that I really dread releasing to the public. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I chicken out and not actually release Conquest, which is bad because it's the most important section of the Cuckoo universe. Conquest is definitely the mind of a very... There's so much embarrassing about Conquest, from straight up plagiarism, from... Half of Conquest, by the way, was written from my dreams, so a lot of it doesn't make sense. I think the Star Destroyers came from a dream. Like the Star Wars Star Destroyers just casually show up as a vehicle that's used by the main character. I think that came in a dream, and I just chose, let's keep it in. Conquest was never supposed to be written down. Conquest was never supposed to be released to the public, and Conquest was never supposed to be written down. But here we are today. Most of Conquest still isn't written down, but there's a timeline. The beginning of Alexander Pratensis' life has been written down. But everything between then and, like, the modern day hasn't been written down, except with the exception of a timeline. There's proper story and then a timeline. And by proper story, I think the most embarrassing part of the Cuckoo universe is Conquest Volume 1, Broken Promises, because that's just a volume from the manga Hayate no Gotoku with replaced characters, complete with word-for-word dialogue. Now there's a reason for that. Conquest has a weird conceptual history, a weird and long conceptual history, that you would think if you have a long conceptual history, the final product would be good. No. But it started off when I was in middle school, and I was watching this anime called Hayate no Gotoku, or Hayate the Combat Butler, and I remember being frustrated by it, because I liked the characters, I liked the setting, and I liked the world building, but then the plot never progressed beyond your typical harem anime plots, where the guy would walk in on the girl changing and then she would get angry and slap him and blah blah blah. It was just... I remember being so frustrated, like, you have this world and you're doing nothing with it. What you need to do is take the story more seriously, create a foil to Hayate's character. Like, Hayate's full of optimism and skill, but he needs a foil. He needs a sort of dark Hayate, a negative Hayate. Possibly someone who has the same lifestyle, the same upbringing he did, being poor but developing martial arts type skills, just trying to survive when his parents threw him in a tiger cave to get freaking money or whatever. Just have that foil character come in, and then you'd have a good show. Take it more seriously. Really do something with your world. And so the entirety of Conquest originated as a review of an anime I had. Like, take a review, take a paragraph with a point of it saying you need to introduce a foil character, and then that was the original, and never write that review down. It's a very abstract way to start a story, with a review, with a section from a mental review that I never bothered to write. Because around then, me and my sister would write reviews for anime we watched, and show each other our reviews. I would think of review points, and I just never bothered to write down a review for Hayate no Gotoku. That point in that non-written review stayed with me. Later on in life, actually not far later on, come to think of it, still in middle school, I think I have insomnia. I can't sleep. A lot of people can just lay down and fall asleep. I don't really fall asleep until 4 a.m. Now, that doesn't mean I'm, like, on the computer up until 4 a.m. I mean, I can go to bed at 10 a.m. Not 10 p.m., but I will be sitting in my bed just staring at the ceiling until 4 a.m. I never go to bed really any earlier than that. I'm just stuck, just sitting there in the darkness doing nothing, just sitting there doing nothing. I think that's where I get a lot of my patience from, because every night I'm laying there for like 5 hours or whatever. If I go to bed at 11, 11's the golden spot for me to try to go to sleep. So 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 5 hours I'm just sitting there doing nothing. So eventually I thought, I have this... I don't want to say creative mind, because you can get that misconstrued with an original mind, but I have a creative mind where I can make stories and ideas, and I thought, let me just tell myself a story. Let me just see if I could world build a universe while I'm just sitting here every night. So I like, okay, what's the plot's gonna be? It's gonna be something basic. A dude tries to take over the world. Okay, the end. So we're gonna go through the process, step-by-step process, the characters he meets along the way, blah blah blah. Like, okay, I should build up this world. Hey, a few months ago I thought about Hayate the Combat Butler, and how much better it could be with its world building if it had a foil character. We could make that foil character, the foil to Hayate, be the main character of this story where this dude tries to take over the world. And the Hayate character can sort of work as a foil for him instead, since the foil character would now be the main character. So what happened was, like, I'll just say everything in Hayate the Combat Butler up to this point is canon, with the exception of this new foil character introduced, and the story being focused around him. And then I'll just slightly change the character designs in my head, change the name of characters. Hayate became Hagane, so that shows how much creativity I put into that. I really never became good at naming characters until like 2018. Original characters I name have terrible names. And it's not like you can look at there's a Vietnamese character named Eri Chi Mao, which isn't a real Vietnamese name. And there's a Chinese name named Hong Cheng, and that's such a basic Chinese name. And it's like, oh, you can't. And then like there are Hispanic names named Juan. And like, oh, you give this basic names to everyone. No, the white people have stupid names too. Frank Julio is a dude. Albert Kirky is a dude. I'm terrible at naming characters up until 2018. Let's see. But yeah, so Conquest started off as, I'll create this dude named Alexander Pratensis, and it'll just be, and remember I'm in middle school, so he's like, oh, he's got to have this Imperial Japanese Navy uniform, and freaking a katana, and he's so cool. And it's like, I want to have him ties with this Assassin's Brotherhood stuff to reveal that, you know, he's the ultimate Mary Sue, who has like, oh, this cherished pedigree. But I thought, you know, when would be a good time for assassins to pop up? And I thought probably Julius Caesar. So I wanted him to be descent of like one of the earliest assassins from the Julius Caesar days. But you know, you can't. Hayate no Goku set in Japan, and I'm like, I can't set if he's going to be. So eventually, I came to the idea that he was going to be mixed European and Japanese. And Alexander Pratensis dangerously looks like a self-insert character. Believe me, he is not. And I think that's really going to become clearer in the 2018 Conquest stories. Because there's a story I always wanted to tell with Alexander. It's ultimately... I really like subversion. I like taking expectations and flipping them around. Alexander Pratensis, the main character of Conquest, seems to be a hero's journey character, but there's some hints, even in my early middle school phases when I really didn't know how to set up a plot, there were some hints that there was something more to him, and something more than just the hero's journey. I call it the hero's fall, and that's going to really manifest itself in the upcoming stories for Conquest. But where I was like, oh yeah, so I created slightly different characters from Hayate the Combat Butler, introduced Alexander Pratensis as the dude to control the world, gave him a backstory that looked like it came out of Dragon Ball Z with like a world championship of people fighting each other, and he just went around conquering stuff and building robots and all that stuff. Now, that went on for like that went on till senior year of high school. So, I was about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. For 7 years, I was making this story in my head, just sitting in my bed. And whenever I would fall asleep, I would dream, and when you're thinking about something and then you fall asleep, that's going to carry over into your dream. So half of the Cuckoo universe I didn't consciously write. It just came to me in a dream as like the obvious next part of the story. And I would remember the dreams of the the Conquest story vividly, so I could continue on next time I sat down and thought of this story in my head. So all the weird stuff in Conquest, hey, I wasn't sober, you know. I literally wasn't in control of my mind. But eventually, when it was senior year of high school, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and come to find out, she did the same exact thing where she couldn't sleep, so she sort of developed this story in her head. So she did the same exact thing as me. And we were both freaking out when we found that out, because I don't know if you guys realize this, but sitting in your bed for 4 hours creating this random, edgy, like freaking cringy's better than edgy, cringy story from your middle school years and carrying it on for 7 years, that's not normal. That's not normal at all. So she wanted to hear the story, like, oh man, it's 7 years of continuity. Maybe I should probably write it down. And she's like, yeah, go ahead, write it down. So I decided to write it down from the beginning of Alexander Pratensis' life, and that would involve some backstory from Hayate Nagotoku. And the goal of writing it down was just to get the story to her as quick as possible. So I just took the manga and ripped the dialogue word for word, with the exception of like the first and last chapter, and the foil character being in the scenes, and his scenes that weren't part of the original Hayate manga, and changing names. So Conquest Volume 1, Broken Promises, which is something that is written down, 150 pages I think, sitting on my, actually I think it's 50 pages, sitting in my Google Drive, waiting for me to look through it and annotate it, just put it to the public, is that. Now every volume after that doesn't do the word-for-word plagiarization thing. We stopped being a thing by the time I was writing the 4th volume, so I just decided to stop. Now that it's going public, I'll probably get back to writing it, but it's going to be original content from that point out, Just the first volume. The first volume is an embarrassment that I wouldn't even properly call my own work. But yeah, that remains unpublished.